And it's the other important thing about that process is just making sure that people from the communities on both sides of the bridges come out and have the ability to have input into the process. We were at a meeting with MassDOT down at the State House a while ago, and with myself and Representatives Wolf was there and Representative Waltz was there, and we were arguing for them to not just have, they were alternating meetings between the Alston side of the bridge and the Cambridge side of the bridge. And I think for a lot of people in Cambridge, going over to Alston is a trek they don't normally do, and just getting over there to be able to go and have input is difficult. You're coming home from work or what have you. So we successfully argued for them to have parallel meetings between the two sides, just so that we can make sure we have as much community input into these bridges beforehand as possible. Because, like you say, we're not going to be restoring these again for quite some time.
Several generations, yes.
So let's make sure we get it right.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you went to speak with Mass DOT. I think they feel, because they are under pressure to get the design done quickly, because they have a limited amount of time during which they can do it, and a limited amount of money. And the more public meetings you have, obviously, the slower the process.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to have all that input, because it's also a chance for people to envision the future.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just a matter of putting back what's there, but to actually make it better.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad you were successful in that. I went to a meeting at Mass DOT recently, and they have now agreed to also look at the possibility of underpasses. You probably, as a runner, you've come across the underpass at the Elliott Bridge.
Yep.
Yeah, and that obviously is if you would have to go up to the Elliott Bridge and then fight the traffic,
Yeah.
it would be very hard.
Yes. Yeah. And you don't want to be in an unsafe position of where you're, somebody's coming over the bridge and you're crossing and making sure that they can see you and you can see them. And an underpass would be good. I know with these bridges in particular, the water level was a concern. That they're gonna have to look at whether or not they can do that within budget and under the time constraints. But I know they're exploring both that option and a couple other options as to how they want to manage the pedestrian flow in and around and over the bridge. One idea what they mentioned was having a bridge that goes out into the water and comes back down. It's like a floating bridge underneath.
Yeah, the problem is the floating bridge is, because the river is so narrow, it would make it impossible for the rowers to use that particular arch.
Yeah.
And since rowing is such a big sport, an important sport, to go out into the river would have a huge impact on the rowers.
Yeah. Which I think just underlines the importance of people who use the bridge or go under the bridge to make sure that they come out to these community meetings that MassDOT is holding. And you can find those on either MassDOT's website or CambridgeMA.gov website.
Yeah. And so that these meetings, both the one in Cambridge about the Anderson Bridge and about Western Avenue and River Street Bridge in Alston, were very well attended.
Yeah.
There were each time well over 100 people. And the rowers were there, and the bicyclists were there, and the runners and the walkers were there, and the park advocates, and all the elected officials. There were, I know, some of your colleagues from City Council, they did come over to Cambridge and said, we also want to have a meeting in Cambridge. So that voice was clearly heard, and obviously now successful.
Yeah.
Now, you obviously lived in other places before Cambridge. You said you lived in Chicago.
Yep.
And
I didn't have the benefit of the Charles River in Chicago, though.
Well, you have a lakefront there.
Yeah.
And I know in Chicago they have a wonderful path along the lakefront.
Yep.
And Lakefront Drive.
Yep.
They're closed on Sunday for bicyclists. So Chicago has some wonderful parks, and I went to see the Millennium Park in Chicago, and they had a serious case of park envy. I think we are a long way from having anything like the Millennium Park.
Yeah. Another thing I would be envious of was I guess we were talking earlier about the skate park.
Yes.
That's something I never had when I was a kid. So we, had to go skate like on the street or in front of our houses, or you have to drive like 45 minutes out to get to a skate park in the suburbs. And so I'm anxiously waiting to vicariously live through some of the kids that are going to be having
Yeah.
the benefit of the skate park that you're currently working on.
Yes. Well, this has been an exciting saga. It started probably over 10 years ago when my students, I was teaching at the Radcliffe Seminars, they designed the space underneath the Zakem Bridge, which is a very challenging site because it doesn't get any sunlight, so you can't really do plantings. It's very loud, but it's accessible.
Yeah.
So the idea came up for a skate park.
Yeah.
And so when the Conservancy started 10 years ago, we started to look at where could that skate park be built? Should it be in Cambridge? Should it be in Charlestown? And Cambridge was very supportive to have it in Cambridge. So the site was selected, and then we worked with over 400 skaters. And some of them when they started, they were, 10 years old.
Yeah.
So, and some of them are now, in their late teens, because this process takes a long time.
Yeah.
So we worked with them and designed a skate park, and we raised 2.5 million, and the city of Cambridge has committed 100,000 to the skate park, and the BRA and the state. So there has been both public support, a lot of private support, a lot of foundation support. So I think it's a very exciting project, and we want to make sure that once the skate park is built, it's also then well maintained.
Yep.
Because that is just as important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were skating in Chicago, and where else did you skate?
Florida, California, skateboarded all over.
All over. So did you go to those places because of skate parks, or what brought you to those places?
Well, I was a kid, and so my parents were moving around, and when you're under 10 years old, you don't really have a choice as to where you live.
I see. So
so each time my parents moved, I had to follow them.
Yeah.
But
So you didn't go as a teenager to move to different skate parks, because that's what some teenagers do. They go and skate at different parks.
Oh yeah, we didn't have that much. We didn't have that many options when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I don't think when I was a kid, also skateboarding wasn't quite as mainstream as it is now. Now you have the X Games, you have snowboarding in the Olympics. When I was a kid, it was much more. We didn't really have that much. It was still a sport that a relatively small minority of us did.
Yeah, and some people thought that it would never take off, but if we look at the Olympics now and the young women in the half pipes, I think it's amazing of how snowboarding benefiting from skateboarding, and
definitely.
And the other way around too, because many snowboarders train in skate parks in the summer, because it's easier then to find snow.
Yeah.
And it's great to see those young women doing that.
Yeah, and we're bringing home the gold in the Olympics, so it's I think it's good for us. Another thing I was was looking at was getting an update on swimming in the Charles.
The swimming in the Charles. So you have
probably too cold right now, but
it's well, the ice is gone, but we are working. We are planning to have another swim.
Okay.
There have been already swim races in the Charles.
Yep.
And over 150 people have participated in those swim races. And there is also the governor has appointed a commission under the leadership of former Cambridge Mayor Alice Wolfe, who now is state rep. She filed a bill that was passed to create a commission to look at the water quality and swimming in the Charles. And the members of this commission have now been appointed. And Senator Petruccelli is the chair, and who also represents Cambridge.
Yep.
Representative Marty Walls is on that commission. Representative Sonia Chendias also is on that commission locally. And so they will be looking at various sites along the Charles of where to swim, how to swim.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cambridge shore lends itself well because of the long seawall.
Oh.
Because you want to have some depth of where you enter the water, so you don't have to stir up the sediments.
Okay.
Because the water quality is swimmable much of the summer, but the sediments, you really want to leave those alone and not stir up the sediments.